fresh, if that's the word, from a weekend retreat at Camp David with his trusted advisor, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden came back fighting, and all the Liberal commentators were forced to eat the words they had spoken on television after his disastrous showing in Atlanta after the presidential debate. They all said how shocked they were, like the police captain in Rick's Cafe in Casablanca, who was shocked to find that there was illegal gambling going on in the casino, complete with roulette wheels, card tables, and the rest. That police chief was shocked, he said. Well, all these Liberal commentators that had been calling all these videos about Joe Biden's mental state as deep fakes were left then to confront the reality seen by hundreds of millions of people around the world, which showed that a drooling, driveling imbecile was in charge of the United States of America and its hypersonic, intercontinental, ballistic, nuclear missile fleet. And all over Europe, people were asking their own governments, you're asking us to go into World War III after that imbecile Biden? So they all panicked, you see, until they realized that actually there is no way to remove Joe Biden from the ballot as the Democratic Party's choice for president. 4 more years. Take a look at him, Joe Biden. Who looks at him and says what he needs is another 4 years as president of the United States? So they began to panic because they discovered that if not Biden, it's Kamala Harris, laughing gas Harris, where we can be unburdened by where we have been. They realized that Kamala Harris is even more unelectable than Joe Biden, so they began to backtrack and claim it was just a bad night. He was just tired. It was the cold. That's why they took him to an eating house right after the debate and allowed him to infect a lot of unsuspecting people. It was just a cold. He'll be better next time. Except he's now going to resign next week, according to the hottest Beltway pundits who are this evening going into overdrive. How do you get rid of Biden without having to have Kamala Harris? What if Kamala Harris will not step down? And I suspect that she will not. Big Mike Obama is already fundraising for her. Kamala, not Big Mike. She's already fundraising for her. And she's going in and out of the portals of big money black people, for starters. But they're finding it a very difficult job to raise money for a Kamala Harris presidential bid. In any case, they've already given to Joe Biden. You want them to give again for Kamala? So how do they get rid of Kamala? How do they shoehorn somebody even remotely electable? I don't know, Hillary Clinton perhaps. It is a thoroughgoing coach and horses through the Democratic Party in the United States. It is an omni-shambles. It is a cluster, you know what. And laughing all the way to the polls is big Donald Trump, Zion Don, the big orange man, who has sold his soul and maybe other parts of his anatomy to the Zionist lobby in exchange for £125 million donation from one of the biggest Zionist funders in America. Trump is ready to let Israel finish the job and will give them the wherewithal to do so. So Biden, who did all that for Netanyahu and the genocide, is being knifed in the back by the people he sacrificed a very considerable part of the Democratic Party's voting base in order to appease. So the American election is a few months away, but it is getting red hot. Stand by for more details in the course of the show. In France, Macron is already French toast. He got 20% of the vote in the first round of the parliamentary elections that he himself called needlessly in the aftermath of the spanking he got from Marine Le Pen in the European Parliament elections just a few weeks ago. He enjoys a spanking, does Macron, and boy did he get one. And he's going to get another one at this weekend's second round runoff elections. State of play is this: the right-wing French nationalist Marine Le Pen is on 34%. My friend, my equivalent in France, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and his new Popular Front of left-wing forces is on 28.5%, and Macron is on 20%. So the top two candidates in every constituency will run off against each other. And so, as Macron is not in the top two in almost every constituency in the country, his voters are going to have to decide, do they back the left or do they back the right? It'll be a very interesting story indeed. And we will cover it, of course, in depth on Sunday in the mothership, the Sunday edition of the mother of all talk shows. But let me turn to the British general election, which has reached fever pitch. Well, fever pitch amongst the 50 to 60% of the people who will vote in the parliamentary election, because nothing has excited them so far. How could it? The two main protagonists, so wooden the birds are trying to nest in one of them, and the other looking like a shoeshine boy at Paddington Station from the bowels of a Conservative Party which has not elected a leader for some considerable time. The last one they elected was Boris Johnson. One after the other, they stabbed themselves, stabbed each other in the back, got rid of them in a coup, and had an unelected leader take the office of Prime Minister. I've lost count of the number of foreign secretaries, defence secretaries, chancellors of the Exchequer that we have had. Suffice to say, it all looks like Italy in the 1960s and 70s. Stability used to be Britain's middle name, no longer. The shoeshine boy is out. He's going to ply his trade, lucrative one. In California, he's got a green card in his pocket already. His wife is a non-dom resident in the United States for tax purposes, you understand. And he is off ski. That will leave the Tories with their utterly depleted number of members of Parliament after tomorrow to decide whether they become the nice or the nasty party. The numbers will matter. If Penny Mordaunt were to hold her seat in Portsmouth, and she's in very real danger of losing it, they'll probably choose her and go nice to differentiate themselves from the Reform Party, to which I shall turn in just a minute or two. But if she loses her seat, they'll decide to go nasty. Nasty means Cruella Braverman. It means Kemi Badenoch. Two black women, but that's the only good thing you could say about them. They are red in tooth and claw. They make Liz Truss look like a Liberal, and they will be the new face of the Tory party. In which case, nothing will differentiate the Tories from Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. In which case, why not merge the two of them together? Why not have a takeover or a reverse takeover? Why doesn't the Reform Party take over the Tory party? Tory party might seek to take over the Reform Party. Maybe make Nigel Farage the Deputy Prime Minister. Who knows? The Deputy Shadow Prime Minister, of course, I mean. Why not, in that case, change their name altogether to the Reform Conservative Party or the Conservative Reform Party? All of these things are on the table in the aftermath of what is expected to be a significant but not landslide majority for the Labour leader Keir Starmer, to whom I now turn. This man is not just the most charmless, the most dishonest, the most clumsy, the least attractive, the least charismatic, the least eloquent contender for Prime Minister that we have ever seen. We've had people who had some of these attributes or lack of them in the past. Clement Attlee was no platform speaker, but he was honest. John Major was not charismatic, but he was honest, and moreover, he was nice. But here we have a person, which even Tony Blair describes as having a problem from the off, because although he's going to get power, he's already massively unpopular in the country. There was a poll today which asked people what their reasons for voting Labour tomorrow in the general election. 50% of them said because they were not the Conservatives. 50% said they were not the Conservatives. You know how many said it was because they like the Labour leader, Keir Starmer? 1%. 1% of the people are going to vote tomorrow to make Prime Minister a man that they overwhelmingly already dislike before he's got started. I've said, and I mean it, if Keir Starmer is the Prime Minister, Britain will be at war in the next 6 months. Like Tony Blair, he will take us into war after war of the American presidential choice. If it's Biden or Kamala, or if it's Trump, whatever war the United States decides to enter, Keir Starmer will take Britain into that war. It might be in the Caucasus, it might be in the Ukraine, it might be in the Red Sea, it might be in the Persian Gulf, it might be in the South China Sea. The one place it will not be is in the English Channel. So if you have a son or a daughter of fighting age, you better seriously contemplate the fact that the man that seems likely to be the Prime Minister on Friday is already pre-programmed and has predetermined that Britain will go to war. And that's only one of the reasons for not voting for him. Dishonesty is a curse in politics, you know, and they don't come more dishonest than Keir Starmer. I give you only this, and I could give you much. I give you this. In the 1990s, almost 100 football supporters from the great city of Liverpool, whose people overwhelmingly backed Labour for generation after generation, were crushed to death as a result of the incompetence of the football authorities, the incompetence of the police chiefs on guard, on duty at that time. They were slain by negligence, by criminal negligence, but they were then slandered. And they were slandered in a dirty little rag called The Sun, owned then as now by Rupert Murdoch. But then it had sales in the millions. Now those sales have dwindled, and the influence of that paper faded almost to nothing. They were slandered in The Sun, which claimed that the Liverpool supporters had urinated over dead bodies, that Liverpool supporters had picked the pockets of their own compatriots, fellow Liverpool supporters, had robbed them as they lay there dead and dying. The people of Liverpool then announced a boycott of The Sun, which is virtually universally honoured in the city. Hardly a single copy of that newspaper has been sold in the decades since. Newsagents have had to take the hoardings of The Sun down. If they keep copies of the paper, they have to hide them. Most of them don't keep them at all. In Liverpool, a Labour fortress, the Labour leader, when running for the position, had to say that he would never write for The Sun. Guess where he said it? He said it in Liverpool. And then he did write for The Sun. He said he would never accept, as Tony Blair had done, to go and kiss the ass of Rupert Murdoch for the endorsement of his newspapers. But he then did exactly that. And today, that endorsement was forthcoming. And he said he was absolutely delighted to receive it. At least when Blair did it, it had millions of readers. Now it has hardly any readers at all. Keir Starmer just signed the death warrant of his own party in Liverpool and environs. Scores of parliamentary seats, scores of Labour MPs will now lose their seats as a result of Starmer's latest betrayal. He betrayed the Palestinians in Gaza. He betrayed the Bangladeshis in Britain, whom he singled out entirely wrongly as being an immigration problem that has to be solved by deportations. And now he's betrayed the people of Liverpool that had so loyally supported him over so many decades as loyal Labour voters. There's millions of people leaving the Labour coalition, millions of Muslim people who cannot stomach what Starmer has done and will not vote for Labour candidates as a result. Millions of people who've been on the marches, the protests, all over the country, non-Muslims, people who just are human and care when they see a beheaded child, care when they see a child starving to death as a result of a siege that Keir Starmer said Israel had every right to impose. And now there are millions of people in Merseyside with an additional reason to abandon Labour. So this election is not all done. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., my good wife and I will rise and be out on the streets of Rochdale, seeking every single vote that we can find to return me to the House of Commons for my 8th and final term. If elected, I will be the leader of the opposition. Starmer will probably be the Prime Minister. Who would you prefer to have sitting opposite him, landing blow after blow as every betrayal tumbles forth over the next 5 years? I hope and believe that most of you would prefer that leader of the opposition to be me, which is why Labour this evening is in such a frenzy of lying here in Rochdale that one after the other legal writ has landed on their desks, from Keir Starmer to Councillor Ali to the Rochdale Labour-controlled council itself. You're all in very serious trouble. Trust me on that. It's the mother of all talk shows.